Dr. Unknown and welcome back to my beginner's guide to Chivalry 2. Now this is more of a top 10 tips for people that are new to Chivalry or just new to the hack and slash genre in general and just want to get used to the game and finding the learning curve a little bit difficult so they can learn some basics and get into it. Now if you probably are watching this and you're a veteran of the series, or you played like Chivalry 1 through to, all of that, and you're probably finding some of these a bit obvious, that's because these are not for you. I'll be making a more advanced guide later down the track. If you are watching this and you think I missed some key things out, and you think that I didn't explain things in that great detail, please let me know and leave it in the comments below and I'll go over it. So first on first, we'll start with tip number 1. Tip number 1, don't spam the slash button like a madman on speed. Take your time and plan your attack when you go into the battlefield. So many times I see people run in, waving their axe around to get one hit and died. Right? If you take your time to go in and pick your targets, you're less likely to hit your teammates and more likely to actually get some kills. Remember, there are a lot more attacks to be used rather than slashing. You can now overheads and stabs and they all have different reasonings. Furthermore, each weapon has different bonuses to each different attacks, so make sure you cater those to the weapon you're using. Remember, after each attack, you are vulnerable to be hit, so when you're just spamming the slash button, there are periods of time when people could get attacks in to kill you. So to make sure to plan your attack when you go in and take your time. Tip number 2, how to prevent getting kicked in the face. For the most common thing I see is people just holding block for long periods of time waiting for the next attack. This was also a second complaint someone posted on the Reddit when asking for tips on what to put for this video. So I thought I might answer that. First of all, don't hold your block for long periods of time for 2 reasons. One of which is your stamina will be rapidly reducing as you're holding your block. Maintaining this reduces your stamina, and not only is your stamina reduced when you hit, right, this also makes you're much more vulnerable to being disarmed, as once your stamina health reaches 0, you're disarmed or whatever your shield is lost from your hand. This gives you a free hit to your opponent and it makes you weaker in general. Number 2, you're making yourself vulnerable to being kicked. Once you're kicked holding block, you're stunned, which gives another free hit to your opponent. A way to combat this is to just wait until your opponent actually lands a strike to actually hold your block. Obviously there is exceptions to this, but that will come to that later. Furthermore, make sure you're moving left and right when you're attacking. This makes you unpredictable and less likely to being hit. Furthermore, it makes you more likely to just dodge the kick itself, which gives you a free hit on your opponent. Also, if you see the kick coming, it allows you to give a quick free strike and get a free hit in on as well. So to summarise, make sure you wait until the last second to hold your block, don't hold it for long periods of time, and move around. Tip 3. How to fight multiple opponents. Now this is by far probably the hardest thing you probably have to master in this game, but some quick tricks from me and you might be able to at least hold your own while you learn the basics. Now, as previously stated, you're not supposed to hold your block for long periods of time, but because this is more for beginners, I will suggest holding your block when you're holding multiple opponents. This means that you're most likely to use your riposte and counters to strike back. Do not use regular attacks. For riposte and counters will block you from incoming damage from people in front of you. Now when I say front, the front is key, which is why also important to use clever tactics on where to position yourself and to make sure that your opponents are always in front of you, as because if they get to the sides or heads, you'll actually get striked in the head by swords and spears, which we wouldn't want that. As the numbers between get more than 3, you'll probably find it's almost impossible. So, the plan is to just take as many down with you before they kill you. Another trick is to keep them off balance. This is why when you're using your counters and riposte, is to alternate targets between the people to make sure that they don't spot you coming. Because normally at the same time when one of them is hitting you, they're all hitting you. And while they're swinging, right, you're protected and they're not, which means you can one by one systematically take them out, assuming you don't get swarmed and overwhelmed. Again, this is probably by far the hardest things to do, and I'll probably make a video as it separately going by step on how to do this. So to summarize, right, you want to make sure that you're countering and riposte and not doing regular attack. Mainly using counters because counters don't reduce stamina, but obviously riposte just as works as well. Using clever foot tactics to make sure they're in front of you and don't get from behind, and to alternate your attacks between people to make sure that they are not in the way. Tip number 4, make sure to revive your allies. I can't tell you how many times I've seen my teammates just crawling on the floor, waiting for someone to pick them up, and everyone just ignoring them. I also can't tell you how many times I've been not been able to be revived and have to do a mile hike all the way back down to the objective from the spawn point. There are many reasons to revive your teammate, one of which obviously is being a good sport, but mainly also because it means you have more allies when you actually go to attack the objective. So if you don't want to revive your allies just out of friendship, revive your allies so you don't get mobbed by the first time you see an enemy army. Tip number 5, you're going to die, and you're going to die a lot in Chivalry. In Chivalry, it's a hack and slash game with fast paced action, where even the best of us and highly skilled players will rack up large amounts of deaths. Because, from no fault of your own, either a stray bolt hits you in the back of the head, or your teammate hits you, or you just go running around a corner and all of a sudden a whole enemy team spawns on top of you and you get mobbed. So if you're looking at the game and you're seeing 30 deaths and you're feeling quite down, don't worry, it's just part of the learning experience. Remember, Chivalry has a high skill ceiling, so lots of practice and you'll get there. So basically the tip for this is just don't feel disheartened and just carry on playing, and you eventually will get it. Just have fun and enjoy it. Tip number 6, how to deal with those pesky archers. Now we all know and hate them. Those guys downrange, firing arrows at you, stealing your kills, killing you and probably ruining your day. But they're not impossible to deal with. First of all, don't just stand still and wait for them to hit you. A still target is a good target, and you'll probably get hit by stray bolts, bows, someone lobbing an axe at you, so you want to move around to make sure you not get hit. Second, unless you have a shield or you're really good at deflecting arrows, do not just run at them directly. Make sure to flank them from the sides and hit them while they're not noticing you. Remember, 2 hits to the head from an archer will kill them pretty quickly. And finally, my personal favourite, if all else fails, just lob an axe at them. If it doesn't kill them straight away, you can just throw another one at them and they'll eventually die. Tip number 7, how to deal with fast moving weapons. We've all been there, someone with a short spear or a short sword outpacing you at every move. No matter what you do, if you riposte or counter, they always seem to be able to get in there and get a quick stab in you, interrupting your attack. With the power of tiny little cuts, they whittle you down and eventually take you out. And as frustrating it is with your massive battle axe, thinking how on earth am I meant to outpace that? Well, it's not impossible. First thing I see a lot of people do is they always resort to their heavy attacks. Though tempting because of the extra damage, you want to make sure your attacks are as quickly as possible. Though heavy attacks have their place, they're not very good up against matchups with people with much faster weapons than you are. Also, you want to make sure that you counter and riposte. And make sure you counter, as a riposte is faster than a normal swing, and a counter is much faster than a riposte. That quickens the gap and enables you to actually be able to get hits in without them being quicker than you. Also, you want to be able to accelerate your attacks into them. So you want to drag your screen in towards the attack. That speeds it up. This mechanic actually speeds up the attack, and it means that you might actually, with the combination of all these things, actually not only outpace them, but also might be able to get some attacks in while they're not noticing. You can increase this by moving to the left or right of the opponent to confuse them. A lot of people might panic under these circumstances, and you'll be able to use that panic to get a quick hit in and actually beat them. Tip number 8. How to counter, or more importantly, how to predict your opponent's movements. So you've seen me say a lot about countering and riposting. Now it's important to tell the difference between them. Now riposte is when you attack straight after a block. A counter is when you predict the direction of your opponent's attack and actually attack them from block first. This can be quite difficult to do, especially depending on certain weapons. Their animations look very much the same. And the person on Reddit asked me specifically, how do you do this? And I thought I might answer here. So I always find that 80% of the time anyway, people are using slashes. People are spamming the slash button anyway. So if you want to do a little cheaty way, you could just assume they're all going to be a slash counter. And though it's not foolproof, it would get you far. But that's not 100% of the time. How I like to do it and how I like to predict is depending on the weapon and the person's using. If they're using a big heavy axe or a morning star, they're likely to use overhead attacks. This is because those weapons give bonuses to overhead damage. Also, spears and halberds and a short sword are also very likely to do stabs because they're quick, and also they give bonuses to stab damage, and also everything else is slash damage. Using this information, you can actually work out roughly what the opponent's going to do. Furthermore, if you see the person using the same attack multiple times, you can use that advantage to assume that they're going to do the same attack again, because people are creatures of habit. Obviously this takes practice and it's a lot easier said than done. So watching your opponent's movements and understanding what makes people do is the key to actually learning how to successfully counter. Tip number 9. Don't be afraid to lob your weapon at someone. This would be a quick tip, but I don't see enough people doing it. When your opponent's running away or there's a break in combat, there's a chance that you could successfully chuck your weapon at someone. A lot of the time people aren't expecting it, and it allows you to get a free instant kill. Just be careful though. If you chuck your only weapon at someone, and suddenly someone comes up behind you, you'll be defenseless and not much to do. Tip number 10. Taking the initiative. Now I left this till last because it is a rather confusing game mechanic, and though it is very explained in quite detail in the menu in the game, but it kind of goes as follows. If you successfully land a hit on someone, or you successfully block or evade someone, that means that you have the initiative. This means that you have got a speed advantage over your opponent for your next attack. This works both ways, however. If you throw your attack and your opponent blocks it or evades it, or he throws an attack and it successfully hits you, he has the initiative. And the important thing to take away from this is if you have the initiative, you follow on with a second attack. If you do not have the initiative, you block and evade. This is because if the person with the initiative has the advantage. If the opponent, say, has the initiative and you attack at the same time as him, he will win the attack engagement and you will get hit. So remember, if you block, evade, or you successfully hit, make sure to do a follow-on attack. If your opponent blocks, hits, or evades, make sure to wait and see if he riposts. If he doesn't, that allows you to give him attack. This is also a good way to make sure that you can kick your opponent. If you attack and he holds block for a long period of time, you can then do a quick kick and stun him and then get a free hit on him. Alright, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and if you have some questions about anything I asked, just comment underneath and I'll try and answer your questions. If you think I've missed anything or think I should have added something, also comment underneath and I'll see what I can do. So I hope you guys had a good day. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.